Leeds United are currently linked with a move for a very interesting young midfielder that could present a little bit of a change in our transfer strategy, but if you listen to different sources, you're getting different versions of the story, so here I am to sort of provide a rough idea of what is actually going on with the potential move for Shea Charles, who is the target in question. Now, before I get into absolutely everything, like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really nice of you. Thank you very much. Also, sorry I've struggled to do videos the last few days. One, I've been working at insane hours, so I've really been struggling to. Two, hay fever has been kicking my teeth in, and it makes me look like shit, and my confidence goes on the floor when that happens. So, anyway, diving into it. Leeds United have reportedly had a little bit of an interest in signing Shea Charles. Shea Charles is a midfielder currently at Southampton who plays an interesting kind of role. He's a sort of primarily central midfielder, can do a lot of box-to-box work, but also plays fairly significantly on the defensive side. Imagine Ilya Gruev with more of a license to go forward, is the way that I've seen his style sort of described. Fits the sort of general physical profile of the Leeds United side. He's right-footed, he's over 6 foot tall, 189 centimetres specifically. However, he doesn't quite fit the sort of age bracket. He's currently 22 years of age, but Leeds have been very heavily linked with him. Southampton would want a decent sum of money for him after not making it to the Premier League last season, after, cheating quite horribly. And the reported sort of figure is approximately £20 million. This is because they will have a fairly significant financial gap that they will need to plug, because they will have absolutely planned to get promoted, and if that doesn't work, then they're going to have a massive wage bill, and they're going to need to sell a couple of players in order to cover for that gap. Shea Charles being one of them are promising players, and having a hell of a lot of potential in him going forwards, and having been at the club for a few years, will therefore not have too much book value, so will present a fairly significant profit for them. Now, the question is, just how strong is Leeds United's interest? Because we aren't the only side that kind of want this guy. After all, if you go into the Championship, you perform incredibly well. I'm having a look at his, and I know that it's not the most effective way of judging how well a player plays, but his SOFA score, as an example, he's been averaging above a 7 effectively all season, except when he was coming off the back of a pretty nasty injury that took him out for a big chunk of the early season last year. He's a very good player, and if you are a very good player at the age of 22 in the Championship, there is no reason that clubs won't go looking for you, and there's been reported interest from the likes of an Everton and Aston Villa, from various different mid-table-y Premier League sides. I know Aston Villa aren't really mid-table, but it's the same kind of vibe. There's interest from a lot of sides that could do with this move. However, the question around if Leeds are as interested as it is being reported is a very significant one, because Graham Smith seems to have a fairly significant disagreement on this one. The way that he phrased it was that Leeds United are among the admirers of the Championship youngster, with 35 senior international caps, which is genuinely colossal. It's kind of terrifying. Was a part of the FA Cup run, was a part of the run to the playoffs, but according to Graham Smith, we are just one of the sort of teams that are looking on in admiration. And he states that Leeds' interest is yet to progress beyond that admiration. Because if you have a look at the Leeds United squad right now, it isn't really a position that we are screaming out to upgrade. You're not looking at the midfield, which is currently stacked. I'm going to use that as a deliberate pun. With Anton Stack, with Ampadu, with Gruev, with Tanaka, with Longstaff. And some of those quality players aren't really getting on the pitch. You've got Tanaka, who's going to get minutes at a World Cup, that is going to struggle to get on the pitch in that midfield, because it's a very strong midfield. And you compare this to some of the other positions that we've got, where on the right wing, we've got Dan James and sometimes Willie Gnonto, although he prefers to play out on the left. You've got the number 9, where we've got Calvert-Lewin, who's a very good striker. Behind him, Lucas Mecha, who isn't a bad striker in the slightest, but you've not got a big name there that will be able to sort of grab the position in the team by the neck and go, I'm going to start every single game this season. And you've got no one that's sort of a high-profile runny boy, is the way that I want to put that. Someone whose main thing is running off the last man's shoulder and causing a problem. You've not got someone to play in the 10. You've not really got many left-backs. You've got Gabby Goodmanson, sure, but behind Goodmanson, it becomes James Justin, who's right-footed, and you don't necessarily want that. you've got to look at the centre-backs as well. We've got 4 senior centre-backs, and sometimes James Justin. So if you think about it, if we're playing with 3 at the back, you're going to need a 5th in there. So the position where we don't really need to upgrade the most, and I didn't even mention the goalkeeper there, where it's Lucas Perry, who isn't hugely trusted, and then a bunch of players that don't have contracts. You'd start to look at the central midfield and you go, why is this the one that we're potentially looking at upgrading? Keep in mind the source on this is the Daily Mail. They tend to be relatively on point with Leeds United stuff a lot of the time, except for 1 or 2 times when they've been quite wrong. But they're never obscenely wide of the mark. And in theory, if it was last year, Shea Charles is the kind of player that we would absolutely be looking at every single day of the week. Shea Charles would be the tall guy. He wouldn't fit the age profile, but he'd fit the kind of player that's got a lot of appearances behind him. He would be, for the most part, an intelligent move. But this season I have a feeling it's not one that's going to happen. This season I have a feeling that it's going to be a case of, if it does happen, it shows that maybe a Longstaff is one the way out. I don't personally see Tanaka being the one that drops, because as we saw after the FA Cup match, Tanaka grabbed his place in the side and didn't really let go. For me, the players that need upgrading aren't in the midfield. It'd be a bit of a daft one to throw 20 million quid, because that's the sort of number that it would come to, because there's a lot of interest in this guy. But it would be daft to throw that kind of money at a player that isn't the most necessary. You throw that kind of money at an attacking player, a right winger that can play in the 10. If it's a Harry Wilson, sure, you put a decent chunk of money into a contract, into signing on fees, into all this kind of stuff. Brilliant, that makes a lot of sense. If you put it into a striker, makes a lot of sense. If you sign a left back that costs that kind of money, you're saying, right, Gabby, keep your standards up, or this guy's going to take your spot in the first team. Get a centre back in to do the exact same thing, but I think the one position where it doesn't work is the centre of midfield. Sure, you could say it's potentially going to raise the floor of the squad, but the floor of the squad in that position is already pretty damn high. Ilya Gruev has performed in the Premier League, as has Longstaff, as has Tanaka. Stack and Ampadu, they don't even need to be a part of this conversation because they are nailed on, as far as I can tell, week in, week out. I don't think this is one that makes a whole lot of sense. I understand that we're admiring him. Brilliant. But I don't think it's going to pass beyond that. I think I agree with Graham Smith in this case of, it's not a necessary move, and we have moves that are actually necessary right now. If we are clever and we are prioritising, like we know the 49ers like to do, like last season they started from the back and they built forward, the sort of midfielder doesn't make much sense at the minute. So for me, we may have an interest. I don't see it becoming a move. And hopefully it doesn't, because I quite like the midfield options that we've got at the moment. And I know that's a personal preference kind of thing, but yeah, Shea Charles is a good player, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's a player that we'll look at over the summer, at least in any concerted effort kind of way. But anyway, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Pop a like on the video, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I've got to work out what I want to have for me tea now. Yeah. And I'll have a video done for early tomorrow morning because I've missed doing those. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Toodle pip, me amigos.